The extra slide, also known as SCP-1562, is a carnivorous metal playground slide measuring 2.2 meters high and 3.4 meters long. SCP-1562 was acquired from an abandoned playground after several children in the area went missing. The slide is known to engulf people when a person slides down head first on their stomach with their arms tucked down at their sides, and only human beings are affected. If an animal, for example a dog, goes inside the slide, extra slide would not do anything to it. So by appearance, the extra slide is in the form of a tube slide. This is a red, fleshy, tube-like structure which has teeth at the end and a tentacle-like structure. Initially, people believed that it was just the tube which was the monster, but on closer look, we can observe that the creature's eyes and hands are a part of the equipment too. The first encounter with the slide, SCP-1562, happened when one guy was walking home and crossed a park. He noticed the extra slide standing in the park. It was strange to him, as he always stays near that area, but never seen a slide like this, simply placed in the middle of nowhere. It was quite oddly placed, which kind of blocked the way around, and it didn't seem like this slide is best for kids. But without thinking too much into it, he just walked away. SCP-1562 is currently quarantined in Testing Lab 46V in Site-24. The door to the lab is to remain locked at all times. As testing is currently suspended, all access is denied unless special clearance is granted. SCP-973-2, also known as Smokey, is a Euclid-class object under the SCP Foundation's containment. He looks like a humanoid male in his late 40s, appearing to be dressed as a police officer in a uniform from the 1970s. He's described as bald, slightly overweight, and having a handlebar mustache. He's always found with one police cruiser, resembling those used by state troopers in the early 1970s. The vehicle appears to be in really damaged state. The eyewitnesses have consistently mentioned large dents in the door and hood, a heavily cracked windshield, heavy rusting, and a loose rear bumper secured with duct tape. SCP-973 will appear approximately 0.4 kilometers behind the target vehicle at night and will chase down the target when they cross the speed limit. Also accompanied by a looping message played on the target's radio, consisting of the phrase, "Run." This limit varies, with the average being 88.5 kilometers per hour, but it can range anywhere between 53.3 kilometers per hour and 112.7 kilometers per hour. So it was late in the night. Jenny was returning from her office party. She wanted to reach home a little faster, so she took a highway road. She put some music on the radio and enjoying her ride to home. She was so caught up in the moment that she didn't realize when she pushed the accelerator. All of a sudden, she realized she's being chased by a police car in high speed. Hence, she kept driving as fast as she can in order to escape from the police. But the police car's speeding up too, in order to catch her. She was a bit surprised seeing him, but anyway, once he reached near her car window, she apologized, saying, "Hello, officer. I'm really sorry for driving so fast. Do I need to produce any documents for proof of my license?" But there was no response from him. Then he came a little closer and took off his sunglasses. His eyes were burning bright red, and in no time he broke the window and tore her body apart. Then he fled from there. There is no predictable pattern or connection which defines the speed limit. But once SCP-973-2, aka Smokey, approaches you, you should consider yourself dead. The range of damage SCP-973 does to his victim's body is unimaginable. 5 survivors are still within the Foundation custody, and they're all suffering from mental trauma. The recovered vehicles of the victims showcase heavy impact damage, both environmental and inflicted, and severe burn damage to the interior. Attempt to capture and contain SCP-973 has failed several times, resulting in the death of 9 SCP agents. SCP-973 is believed to be wounded, but is not incapacitated, reappearing again and again. SCP-3325 is an abandoned facility associated with Real Characters Industries. The site consists of a recording studio, several subterranean laboratories, living quarters, storerooms, an incinerator, and containment areas. The administrative sections of the structure are located on the first floor above the ground level, with a helipad present on the roof. Below ground level are 3 floors containing laboratories, research facilities, and containment areas. SCP-3325 instances are biologically engineered organisms resembling puppets or costumed subjects, designed with the intention of being featured in children's television programs. SCP-3325 are hostile and aggressive to humans and other unrelated organisms. SCP-3325 lack the feeling of being hurt, hence continues to pursue a target even if it's severely injured. Specimens of SCP-3325 are contained in large animal containment cells at Research Sector. SCP-3325 came to the attention of the Foundation when local authorities received a video transmission from an unidentified individual requesting help. The subject provided the location of the facility and reported a crisis of unknown nature. Additionally, the video listed in Video Log 3325 was sent. SCP-3325 was finally located and investigated. At the time of discovery, SCP-3325 instances were roaming freely around the underground floors of the facility. All personnel on site were found to be terminated or missing. The office of the site manager was emptied and sterilized of all fingerprints and evidence. Attempts to contact or locate the president of the corporation were failed. All instances of SCP-3325 encountered on site were either terminated or captured. SCP-3325 are carnivorous, with no preference for any particular meat. The intelligence of SCP-3325 varies, with the extent unknown. Instances do not possess reproductive organs, and the method by which these organisms were produced has not been identified. The behavior of these organisms is mostly unpredictable, with instances in containment observed to either stare at personnel for long periods or randomly exhibit heightened aggression. Instances are able to vocalize certain phrases at random intervals, although no actual ability to comprehend spoken language is evident. SCP-3325 is contained on site, surrounded by the existing perimeter fence, and guarded by a team of no fewer than 4 security personnel. As the structure exists in a remote location, no additional security measures are necessary. And today, we're drawing the story of Gorefield, also known as SCP-3166. So, Gorefield is one more cartoon character turned into a monster. The way how cartoon cat and cartoon dog turned. Gorefield is the monster version of one of the famous cartoon characters of all time. That's Garfield, a fictional, lazy, fat cat of the comic strip of the same name, created by Jim Davis. So the very important question now is, how did this lazy cat turn into a monster then? Well, to know that, you have to watch this video. So let's start it. By appearance, Gorefield is a very ugly version of Garfield, with very long, elongated arms, big sharp teeth. It's a 2.1 meter tall humanoid creature. However, its body looks like someone is wearing a costume, and the inspection has revealed that the costume is made out of real cat fur. An analysis also shows that its inner mass is composed of lasagna. Well, sounds really gross, but it's a fact. But no one knows, how did that happen? It also has a thick and long tail. It's said that Garfield turned demonic when a hostile parasite infected it and took over its body. Now there's no trace of Garfield, only Gorefield by now. By nature, Gorefield is a psychotic, heartless, and very cruel creature, unlike Garfield, who was a very lazy cat who only loves sleeping the whole day. Gorefield is also greedy, selfish, and sadistic at the same time. Its big eyes clearly shows that. It only cares about 2 things in the whole world: lasagna and bloodshed. Yes, you heard it right. Gorefield loves killing people and loves a bloodbath. It doesn't care about anyone, not even its master, John. In fact, it takes pleasure in terrifying John, which is really sick. It always passes sick comments and sadistic jokes. Gorefield does not even care about its canon friends, unlike its previous version, Garfield, who used to love and care about its friends, Odie and Nermal. In order to prove that, Gorefield even went ahead and killed them. Yes, it killed Odie and Nermal and said that it didn't even like them in the first place. Now you can clearly imagine how sick Gorefield is, who can kill even its own friends. Gorefield is so sick and barbaric. The thought of Gorefield itself makes me sick. After killing its friends, it went after John, who hurriedly hid behind TV. Gorefield then roamed around everyone in the house, trying to find John. And it tauntingly kept telling that it can smell John. You can imagine the level of cruelty it has. During this, John's girlfriend arrived and was waiting for John, unaware of the whole scene which was going inside the house. However, Gorefield got to know that and even killed her brutally. John could not take more than this, so he gathered some courage and came out to kill Gorefield. He shot Gorefield in the eye with a shotgun, but in vain, as Gorefield taunts him, saying that bullets can't kill him. John is now hopeless, runs out of all the possible ways to kill it. Then he went ahead to save Arlene, who's Garfield's canon girlfriend. But in the basement, where Gorefield soon arrived to kill him, it bit and ripped off his hand from the wrist gruesomely. Now the hopeless John found no way and finally sets off one of the furnaces over fire, which then ended up exploding the whole house and destroyed it. After this, it would be a common thought that Gorefield could not have survived this explosion. But you're wrong, because Gorefield was alive even after the explosion. And everyone assumed that it killed John as well. But surprisingly, even he was alive. As per Gorefield, John completes it, so it's never going to kill him. It promised to keep John safe, and then he grew wings and flew from there to some other location. No one knows where did it go. It's still a mystery. However, this is one theory. Now let's talk about Gorefield as SCP-3166. As per SCP Foundation, SCP-3166 is a very dangerous creature who is always watched and guarded. They believe SCP-3166 is an entity who's wearing a Gorefield costume, and he attacks anyone who's associated with the Gorefield franchise and brand. So whenever the franchise is doing poorly, he would attack. The job of the agents are to monitor the SCP-3166 from attacking the individuals. In a particular event of manifestation of SCP-3166, frozen lasagna was supplied to the agents to distract it away from the target and dispatch it when SCP-3166 is out of public view. There is a very weird thing about SCP-3166 is that its inner mass is composed entirely out of pasta. And that came out when a detailed analysis of SCP-3166 was done. Generally, targets of SCP-3166 includes individuals prominently involved in rival media to the Gorefield franchise, individuals involved in parodies of the Gorefield franchise, vocal critics of the Gorefield franchise, and, obviously, Jim Davis, the creator of Gorefield. When SCP-3166 reaches its target, it causes bodily harm by a mixture of blunt force using nearby objects. It also force feeds its victims with lasagna. Even lasagna is proved to be an effective form of bait for SCP-3166. It's very easy to lure it with the same. That's why, whenever SCP-3166 sees lasagna, it will leave everything and come behind that to eat it. So, in many occasions, lasagna has been used to trick SCP-3166. So, SCP-3166 first manifested on October 23, 1989, within the Chicago offices of the United Media. During this manifestation process, SCP-3166 showed very strange behavior. It started roaming around in a very distressed and confused manner. SCP-3166 had no idea of what exactly it was doing. Then it started to harm all individuals around it. It was difficult to control it at that point of time. However, it de-manifested after 20 minutes. And that's due to the application of anesthetics, which was done by the Foundation agents to control SCP-3166. So you could guess here that how much difficult and dangerous it is to contain this entity. And that was today's story, guys, about Gorefield, also known as SCP-3166. SCP-096 comes under Class Euclid. SCP-096 is a humanoid creature measuring approximately 2.38 meters in height. Subject shows very little muscle mass, with preliminary analysis of body mass suggesting mild malnutrition. Arms are grossly out of proportion with the rest of the subject's body, with an approximate length of 1.5 meters each. Skin is mostly devoid of pigmentation, with no sign of any body hair. SCP-096's jaw can open to 4 times the norm of an average human. Other facial features remain similar to an average human, with the exception of the eyes, which are also devoid of pigmentation. It's not yet known whether SCP-096 is blind or not. SCP-096 is to be contained in its cell, a 5 meter by 5 meter by 5 meter airtight steel cube at all times. Weekly checks for any cracks or holes are mandatory. There are to be absolutely no video surveillance or optical tools of any kind inside SCP-096's cell. SCP-096 is normally extremely docile, with pressure sensors inside its cell, indicating it spends most of the day pacing by the eastern wall. However, when someone views SCP-096's face, whether it be directly, via video recording, or even a photograph, it will enter a stage of considerable emotional distress. SCP-096 will cover its face with its hands and begin screaming, crying, and babbling incoherently. Approximately 1 to 2 minutes after the first viewing, SCP-096 will begin running to the person who viewed its face, and from this point on, he will be referred to as SCP-096-1. Documented speeds have varied from 35 km per hour to 100 km per hour. At this point, no known material or method can impede SCP-096's progress. SCP-096 will then sit down for several minutes before regaining its composure and becoming docile once again. SCP-799, aka the Carnivorous Blanket, vary in size, shape, and superficial appearance, but always retain the appearance of a knit or woven item of bedding made from an unfamiliar but very soft natural fiber, resembling high-quality merino wool blend. An individual's mass ranges from approximately 0.5 to 6 kilograms and does not change except through ingestion and excretion. So any immediate increase in area comes at the expense of thickness and fabric weight. The blanket retains heat unusually well. Its coloration and markings are highly variable. It tends strongly towards pastel hues and patterns resembling stylized neo-tenuous animals, particularly when its mass is less than about 2 kilograms. The first incident of SCP-799 occurred when a man was shopping for blankets, and a very soft and shiny blanket caught his eyes. It was so luring that he picked it up and immediately, without giving a second thought to it. That night he slept with its new blanket on. But little did he know what was coming next. As the man fell asleep, somewhat by midnight, the blanket came to life. The teeth started to appear and a mouth structure was formed. SCP-799 is awake now. It started to make some kind of weird noise. The man suddenly woke up, only to see his soft and supple blanket turned into some kind of monster. He froze right there, and before he could move a muscle, the blanket just gulped him with his big mouth. Instances of SCP-799 are usually torpid and incapable of movement, requiring little nutrition. What they do need, they draw from the organic detritus present in household dust. One specimen is believed to have survived for years on end, stored in a damp, ill-maintained attic, living on heat from the house below and detritus from the wooden rafters above. Excretion is minimal. Excreta resemble tiny, very dry. If forced to survive for long periods without sufficient nutrition, though, SCP-799 is capable of metamorphosing into a predatory form. The resultant structural changes are invisible to the casual observer. They consist of modifications to the digestive tract and feeding orifices. The latter shift from minute, dispersed filter-feeding mouths into a single large mouth. The organism also develops contractile tissue similar to animal muscle. Once this metamorphosis is complete, the SCP-799 individual waits for a large animal to wrap up in it and become quiescent before opening its mouth, tearing off a few kilograms of biomass and consuming it. The biomass is apparently reduced to thin slurry almost immediately, and even seconds after feeding, there's no visible bulge in the blanket. The mouth is completely reabsorbed 10 minutes after feeding. At this point, no evidence of the blanket's nature is available except by X-ray or by observing the sudden increase in mass. By 40 minutes after feeding, the entire carnivorous digestive system is reabsorbed and the organism returned to filter feeding phase. In carnivorous phase, the organism will not feed on inanimate objects or cold-blooded animals. Its senses are entirely limited to touch and heat, and that it does not recognize cooler objects as organic. SCP-799 reproduces by budding. When an individual's mass reaches a certain minimum, very slowly, except in case of carnivory, it takes on a more quilt-like appearance. Gradually, over the course of several weeks, the quilt squares along one margin puff up and slough off to become smaller doilies or throw pillows. Unlike other SCPs, SCP-001 does not have a classification. This is because that at the time of this SCP's capture, the classification system was not put into place. But given the SCP's extremely violent nature with the ability to teleport, the Keter classification will fit best. According to the SCP Foundation, reports of the creature first came from Guatemala. Onlookers originally reported seeing a demon looking ill, which was approached by 4 young boys. When the creature opened its mouth and revealed a single eye inside, the boys ran away and immediately contacted the authorities. The creature would give off sounds explained as horrible roaring or shrieks from locals over several days. The creature's teleportation ability leaves behind very high radiation, which put 12 people in the hospital. The entity is exactly 6 foot 5 inches tall at an average of 97 pounds. It has gray-brown skin, with its single eye being a milky blue color, with no body hair whatsoever. It has an emaciated body, with bone structure unlike any known species. Its legs are long and thin, ending in sharp black points. The creature's head is spherical and very large in proportion to the body. The neck appears too thin to support the head. Its mouth extends halfway around the head, and it has no lips. The single eye is a large, ball-shaped, milky blue sphere, presumably kept in the head or throat. The creature is explained to be omnivorous, but there are no specific reports to what else the creature feeds on, aside from humans. The creature's biggest weakness is flashing lights, and it's unknown why this is. The prototype is an extremely hostile and destructive predatory creature. As mentioned before, the creature has a single, strange eye in its mouth. When the mouth is open, the eye holds a power to create singularities, which are essentially small black holes. These singularities are used for both the creature to teleport itself and to attack its victims. As one would expect, its sharp claws are also used for attacking. The singularities cause extreme damage to anything near them due to the pulling force of them. The prototype sees humans as a food source, and it's unknown to what degree the creature sees animals as a food source, if at all. SCP-4666 is currently believed to be a single, exceptionally long-lived humanoid entity of unknown origin. Survivors of Weissnacht events typically describe SCP-4666 as a very tall, between 2 meters and 2.3 meters, elderly male of European descent, with an extremely emaciated appearance. The entity always appears completely naked, even when observed outdoors in freezing weather. Though the nature and extent of its anomalous properties remain uncertain, SCP-4666 appears capable of instantaneous or near-instantaneous travel to any location north of 40 degrees north latitude, and possibly to any location on Earth. Web traffic and law enforcement channels worldwide are to be monitored for evidence of SCP-4666 activity, and particularly for cases of stalking or reports involving families with young children. Weissnacht events is a phase where SCP-4666 comes to life. And in this period, SCP-4666 activity occurs exclusively within a period of 12 consecutive nights every year, from the night of December 21st to 22nd to the night of January 1st to 2nd. This period is known as SCP-4666's active phase. SCP-4666 will appear at dwellings in one or multiple locations north of 40 degrees north latitude. In all known Weissnacht events, these dwellings have shared the following characteristics: isolated rural location, home to a family with at least one child under the age of 8, and situated in an area with snow cover lasting throughout the duration of the event. And this event includes children will report seeing SCP-4666 in the vicinity of their family's dwelling. The entity will typically be observed watching the dwelling from a distance, from across a nearby field, or from the edge of a neighboring forest. In some cases, children will report waking up at night to find SCP-4666 watching them sleep through a window. Family members report sounds of footsteps coming from the roof or the attic. An extremely unpleasant odor will be noticed inside the dwelling. No cause for these phenomena will be found. As a result, parents will often begin to suspect that their family is being haunted. Over the course of the night, one of two scenarios will occur. The first, and most common, is that SCP-4666 will kill all members of the family, save for one child under the age of 8, whom it will abduct. In the second scenario, which has occurred only 15% of the time, SCP-4666 will not harm the family. SCP-049 belongs to the class Euclid. SCP-049 is a humanoid entity, roughly 1.9 meters in height, which bears the appearance of a medieval plague doctor. While SCP-049 appears to be wearing the thick robes and the ceramic mask indicative of that profession, the garments instead seem to have grown out of SCP-049's body over time, and are now nearly indistinguishable from whatever form is beneath them. X-rays indicate that despite this, SCP-049 does have a humanoid skeletal structure beneath its outer layer. SCP-049 is capable of causing all biological functions of an organism to cease through direct skin contact, and it has expressed frustration or remorse after these killings. While SCP-049 is generally cordial and cooperative with Foundation staff, it can become especially irritated or at times outright aggressive if it feels that it's in the presence of what it calls the pestilence. Although the exact nature of this pestilence is currently unknown to Foundation researchers, it does seem to be an issue of immense concern to SCP-049. This pestilence, though, it usually seeks to then perform a crude surgery on the corpse while using the implements contained within a black doctor's bag it carries on its person at all times. While these surgeries are not always successful, they often result in the creation of instances of SCP-049-2. In order to facilitate the ongoing containment of SCP-049, the entity is to be provided with the corpse of a recently deceased animal once every 2 weeks for study. SCP-049 is capable of speech in a variety of languages, though tends to prefer English or medieval French. SCP-049 is contained within a standard secure humanoid containment cell in Research Sector 02 at Site 19, and it must be sedated before any attempts to transport it. While SCP-049 is generally cooperative with most Foundation personnel, outbursts or sudden changes in behavior are common. Under no circumstances should any personnel come into direct contact with SCP-049. In the event SCP-049 becomes aggressive, the application of lavender has been shown to produce a calming effect on the entity. Once calmed, SCP-049 generally becomes compliant and will return to containment with little resistance. SCP-682 is also known as the hard-to-destroy reptile. It's a highly dangerous creature. It belongs to class Keter. It appears to be extremely intelligent. The origin of this bloodthirsty creature is still unknown. SCP-682 appears to have a hatred towards all life, be it animals or humans. It just wants to kill everyone and everything on this planet. SCP-682 is contained within a 5 meter by 5 meter by 5 meter chamber with 25 centimeter reinforced acid-resistant steel plate lining all inside surfaces. The containment chamber is filled with hydrochloric acid until SCP-682 is submerged and incapacitated. The Foundation personnel are forbidden to speak with SCP-682, fearing it might make SCP-682 angry. The creature has attempted to break the containment several times, which makes it very difficult for the Foundation to contain it. And that's the reason SCP-682 must be destroyed as soon as possible. But the SCP Foundation has tried to kill it many times, but every attempt has failed. The personnel were only able to cause massive physical damage to it, but at this time there's absolutely no weapon or means available to kill this SCP. SCP-682 has always been observed to have extremely high strength, speed, and reflexes. It was already too late in the night. Noah was coming from his cornfield with 2 of his friends. They're all farmers. They were chattering and going back to their homes. Suddenly, they heard some sound coming from those tall corn plants. Noah shone his torch on the plants, but they couldn't see anything. It was too dark. Then they heard the noise again, realized something is moving inside the cornfield. They thought it must be some animal, maybe a dog or a deer. It must have stuck inside the big tall plants and not able to find a way to come out. So one of them went inside to help the poor animal, but he didn't return for a long time. Noah and his other friend started to think, what's taking him so long? Then they heard the sound again, and all of a sudden a giant reptile looking like monster appeared before them with blood dripping from all over its face. It didn't take much time for them to realize their friend is already eaten by this creature, and now it's their turn. They started to run as fast as they can, but in no time, SCP-682 caught the 2 and teared them apart. This was the first incident where SCP-682 came to limelight. After this, the creature was captured and contained by SCP Foundation. SCP-682's physical body grows and changes very quickly, growing or decreasing in size as it consumes or sheds material. SCP-682 gains energy from anything it ingests, organic or inorganic. SCP-682's regenerative capabilities are outstanding, which helps it to heal quickly in seconds. It's been seen moving and speaking, with its body 87% destroyed or rotted. In one such attempt, 4 Foundation personnel shot bullets continuously for like 30 minutes, destroying and bleeding 80% of SCP-682's body. And they thought it's dead now. When one of the personnel went to check it, the creature immediately opened its eyes and gulped him right there on the spot. This obviously proves now how indestructible this creature is. SCP-682 is also extremely intelligent and capable of speaking, though it rarely speaks with the Foundation staffs. But when it's willing to speak, it's given many important information about its capabilities and powers. In one such interview, when the staff asked why did he kill those farmers, SCP-682 replied, "They were disgusting," which absolutely makes no sense. And when it was asked to elaborate more about it, the creature attacked one of the personnel and ate him. That's the reason personnel are forbidden to speak to SCP-682.